starting off today, one thing that's been getting a lot of media attention recently is this furore around a young migrant male that has illegally entered. And I believe after this, so a couple of things have transpired with this story as well in the aftermath. Said that at the time, police said that they couldn't arrest the man, but they actually arrested the young lady who I believe is the tenant of this place we're going to be talking about now for various reasons. They couldn't arrest the man in question. But since then, I believe due to reoffending, because with trespass in the UK, it's a little bit weird. You can have criminal trespass, but you can also just have civil trespass, and they're dealt with a little bit differently. He has, I believe, since at least been like temporarily arrested or detained for entering other people's residences again without permission. That's as far as I know. I'm not 100% sure on that. But that's as far as I know. So what actually happened then? So we have a young man, as I said, from the local migrant hotel, and I believe this is outside or near Canary Wharf, I believe this is. And walks into a young lady's residence, I believe it's her apartment or whatever, without permission, due to the door being open. And then luckily he doesn't do anything, leaves and walks away. But the locals apprehended him and called the police, and there's a furore at the moment because at the time police said they can't do anything. They can't arrest him because either he didn't steal anything or there's no suspicion that there was another crime that was going to take place, like burglary or something like this. Which I don't think it really holds a lot of water with another story we're going to be talking about a little bit later in this episode, where the thing that's getting a lot of attention at the moment is the sting operation that was done in Surrey, where 18 men got arrested for non-crime incidents. Our daring undercover police officers who went undercover as quote-unquote sexy joggers, causing the non-crime arrest of 18 men for the disgusting crime against humanity known as catcalling and complimenting. But this is the video from the time, ladies and gentlemen, so apologies, the audio is not particularly great, but this is the police at the time turning up to the residence, and locals filming the incident not being particularly happy, but here's what they had to say about it.
Guys are quite unhappy about
Yeah, 100%.
but we have no allegations to arrest at all. Okay? I understand that's something you want to hear, but there's only so much you can do, and obviously the main person there, and she does press charges.
She does want to press charges. She just.
What's the alleged offence?
Sorry, everybody. Sorry, could you make some space, please?
By entering someone's house,
Come through.
That's a lot more than trespassing. So if I went into someone's house, you'd do me for burglary.
There's suspicion of burglary, yes. Sorry, buddy. Trying to make
Well, you're
complaint.
lady who opened the house at 2 o'clock. I think that's not happening. It's happening.
Yeah, I know.
They're going to release you.
It started.
Okay. So that's a little bit about the incident. The guy you can see in the background is the perpetrator in question. Okay, is the person in question that trespassed on this lady's property. Now, again, they said, for those of you who struggle to hear it, they said there's no suspicion of an offence being committed. There's nothing that we can arrest him for, is the idea. And the guy actually asks, if I'd done this, you'd be arresting me on suspicion of burglary. And they literally said, well, only if it was a suspicion of burglary, right? Now, in my mind, the way that I think about this, at least, is that if you're trespassing in this way, usually there's only, a few things that spring to mind as to why you'd be doing this. If you're walking into somebody's home or residence, like an apartment or something like that, typically you're going to be looking for one of two things. Either you're going in there because you think there's something valuable in there that you want, like an object or something like that. You're looking to steal something. That would be burglary, obviously. Or you're looking to go in there and potentially have more nefarious intentions in mind. If there's somebody in there, potentially looking to do some other kind of heinous crime to satisfy whatever evil, satanic impulse is driving you at that time, right? You can guess what I'm referring to. So either, in my mind, you're looking to go in there. If you're doing it in this way, seemingly, if you're just going in there and standing in there for no reason and then just walking away, like you're trying to incite fear into someone. Because if you think about it, in this country, we understand the delineation. It's almost like a sacred delineation between areas for the public, which we sort of all have equal access to and equal right over, and then private areas where they're either under the they're either under the authority or right of another person or corporate entity, whatever it is. But we understand there's places we should be in, there's places that we shouldn't. And inherently, when it comes to somebody's home in this country, we understand, at least for the most part, as a people, that they're not places that we should be without permission. Right? Even if they are friends, even if they're our family, they're not places that we should be without permission. So take this example, right? If you again, this is kind of like a separate example, but you'll illustrate the point that I mean, where our attitudes differ from a lot of people around the world, at least the way I see it. If you end up, say, your car breaks down in a community, in a town, in a place where you're not familiar with anybody, you happen to be driving home, you've had a long commute home, you got to drive through several towns on your way to work or whatever. Maybe you work like an hour away or something like that, and your car happens to break down midway through, and you pull over in this town and you look for somebody to help you, right? Now you see that somebody has an open door, because in this, I'll read you the statement from the Met Police later. The person, the man in question, went in through an open door. There wasn't a breaking and entering per se, because the door was open. But we would understand, or at least for the most part, I think we would understand, that the delineation between where we are, say, either on the pavement outside this person's home or in the hallway outside this person's apartment, maybe, that threshold of the door represents somewhere we have to have permission to be versus somewhere that we don't. And we should take that very seriously. And we do take that very seriously. So what might you do? You might knock the door, even if it's open, and wait outside. If you don't get a response, maybe then you'll call in while waiting outside. You'll shout in, hello, is anybody there? Can somebody help me? Right? Then maybe if you get no answer, you might knock on the door again and announce you're entering, and try and find out if there's anybody in there that can help you. The whole time you're doing so, you're looking out for this person because you want to be respectful to them at every turn, but you need help for whatever it is that you're dealing with. And it's a lot different then in that scenario versus you just go in and stand in the kitchen or something like that and don't say a word, right? Because make no mistake, and now people are going to probably call me all sorts of names for this, ladies and gentlemen. If you were to come down, and you have to be honest with yourself for this one, if you have very liberal sensibilities, you're not going to like what I'm going to say next. But if you come down, say you come downstairs, you've just come out of the bathroom, for example. You got a towel wrapped around your head if you're a female to dry your hair and stuff like that. Especially if you've got kids and stuff like that, right? If you've got kids, children in the house or in your apartment, whatever. If you come down and you are greeted with this, I don't care how liberal and anti-racist stuff that you are, your self-defense preservation instincts are going to then go into overdrive straight away. Because you understand there's an unspoken thing. We're not supposed to stereotype, or we're not supposed to, draw any conclusions. And yes, I fully agree. We should always try to see the best in people, and understand that people have inherent dignity and stuff like that, right? People often use these kind of concepts to twist to not justify the removal of people that shouldn't be in our society, because they are seeking to take over and subjugate us and stuff like that. But I don't care who you are. You're going to have the natural human reaction, which is fear, when you come down and see this, especially if somebody comes inside your home unannounced, seemingly doesn't say anything, and then thankfully, for whatever reason, just gets up and walks away. If he's just going to get up and walk away, why is he going in this house to begin with? It seems that he, and again, me drawing a conclusion from this, I'm not necessarily saying that this is what the case was, but going in there to find out who was there, maybe to come back later. And as far as I know, that's exactly what happened. Maybe not to this person in particular, but to find out who was there. He now knows that it's a young female that lives there, and then he can come back at another point and do something very heinous to her, as we've seen time and time again. But the problem is, ladies and gentlemen, and why people are so angry with everything that's going on in the UK, especially nowadays, they've seen that the stance that the police have taken on these things. They've seen that the stance that the police will bend over backwards for foreign criminals, particularly those who have done some of the most heinous things, and they will turn on their own people. They will turn on their own people for the most menial things, and they will actually be very ardent followers of orthodoxy when they do it, especially the women, seemingly, especially the women, especially if it's a, native man who feminism has told them to hate because they're an evil oppressor and they're trying to keep them down, even though they probably just want to go to work to provide for them and give them a family and love them in the future, right? The women seem to love any opportunity to get one over on their fellow man at this point. And that comes straight out of 1984, where George Orwell observed that the most ardent followers, the most vigorous followers of the party would be the women who was looking for any opportunity to root out unorthodoxy, right? But what sadly happened is the police then, as I mentioned, they couldn't, and keep this in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this is important for the story that's going to be coming up later. They said they couldn't arrest this man because there was either no suspicion of a further offence being committed, or that it wasn't a crime, whatever it is. Maybe it fell under civil trespass and there's a little bit of weird legal stuff going on there. Obviously, I'm not a legal expert, so none of this is, legal advice. I'm not giving legal advice or anything like that. But they said they couldn't arrest him. And in fact, part of the statement is that the man has not been arrested at the time, as our initial investigation has not identified any offences. So you could say that he's guilty of, societal infraction, should we say, but he didn't get arrested for it. Keep that in mind when 18 men got arrested in the Undercover sting that was deliberate entrapment, in my opinion, to skew the statistics in a way that the government won't even know it's outright not true, with the Undercover operation we'll be coming on to in a moment. But this is the footage now, ladies and gentlemen, of the woman, allegedly, the residence, either owner or the occupier of this residence, being arrested for seemingly, it's not just this, but for having a residence trespassed into. But there is more to this, as we'll get on to in a moment. So for those of you who are listening, not watching, there's a group of police officers outside, about 5 or 6 of them, who are talking to this lady who is alleging that she's the sister of the person who had her residence trespassed into, and is making the case that, yes, it's a very serious incident, which it is, obviously, which it is. It is a very, very serious incident. If, however, the Met Police is to be believed, which, again, you have to be careful what you believe coming out of police departments nowadays, or police officers nowadays. There is more to this, however. So this was Wednesday, relating to the incident on Wednesday, which was August 13th, at Marsh Wall, which I believe is the incident we've just seen, the young man trespassing and the young lady getting arrested. We understand a man entered a property through an open door, having been followed by a group of men in the street. The man has not been arrested at this time, as our initial investigation has not identified any offences. We understand this is distressing for the occupants. Now, my question is, initially when you hear that, okay, was he being followed because something had previously happened that this group of men had observed, and they wanted to find out where he was going, whatever suspicious activity he may have been involved in? Maybe he was involved in nothing, and this was just a group of men following him for no good reason whatsoever. Maybe he was concerned for his safety, right? So maybe that was, but there's no indication that he announced that There's no indication that he announced that whatsoever. Why would he not? If that was the case, right? Why would he not? And then the question would be, how good is the English of this person, which, if more video footage, which we've seen from people sneaking into these hotels is to be believed, may not be the best, because a lot of these people are coming from places where they don't even need to learn the language, and they'll go straight into enclaves with their fellow people that they don't even need to learn the language, right? So maybe he can't communicate with it, but that's not necessarily justification. There's just more of a point, again, of saying that these people coming here are not going to be able to assimilate, or not going to make the effort to assimilate. So why are we housing them in the first place? Not to mention this is sovereign land with its own native peoples, and it's for them. It's for them at the end of the day. We're rapidly losing it due to our liberal sensibilities. In a separate incident following this, a 22-year-old woman was arrested on suspicion of common assault against a security guard. Okay, maybe she was getting angry at the fact that, nobody came to help her with regards to this man that was in her residence. Possession of an offensive weapon, a fray, possession of Class B drugs, and an assault on an emergency worker. So I think we can safe to say that she might not have handled this situation the best, and if she was assaulting these people, then yes, of course, she does deserve to get arrested in this instance if she was assaulting these people. Again, how much can you trust coming out of the police nowadays? Again, it makes you think, if the police were good at handling these things, maybe we wouldn't have things like this happening. But the police want to shift the burden onto the public at every single turn, as we'll talk about in the article that's coming up next for you, ladies and gentlemen. A Section 35 dispersal order was put in the vicinity of the area, and a 28-year-old man and a 57-year-old woman were arrested for breaching the order. It's a complex set of events, and we are working hard to investigate and understand what happened, reviewing officers' body-worn video and other video footage. So again, things like this happen, and it's no surprise then when public trust in the police falls more and more and more. Because again, are they going to? They've clearly shown there that they're not going to respect the dispersal order, because this then came the following morning after this incident, and that's what I mean. As far as I know, the guy, assuming it was the same person, came back to the residence after the dispersal order was put in place, and obviously that's then when he may have been arrested for violating that dispersal order. But shows how little respect these people have for these things. Makes you wonder, if they can't understand the language, if they don't understand the customs, and they have no respect for the justice system and stuff like that, do they even understand what a dispersal order is? Do they even understand what a dispersal order is? But like I said, ladies and gentlemen, why you've got to be careful when you trust the police, especially nowadays with how politicized they've become, and in many instances how incompetent they are. Because